public confession. In a few months, it will be 40 years since I wrote my PhD thesis. And I left the United States the very day my dissertation was submitted to graduate school. And that's how much in a hurry I was to return home. Somebody asked me if I had committed a crime and I was running away from America, living that fast. I was not running from anything, I was running to something. And my country did me well. Let me be very honest. Within months of my returning home, I was in a presidential advisory position. But what's important is that it did not come because I had any godfather. It came just simply because I expressed ideas publicly. And I was invited by the people at the highest level to sit down and break down some of those public ideas I had expressed. And I did. And I was just casually, very casually informed following week, oh, by the way, President Shagari has decided that you should replace Professor Odenigwe. And I thought, this is my professor, you know. But it's to show how we have deteriorated as a society in terms of criteria that go into doing things. But one of the things that happened when I was leaving grad school was I said, I know that when I get home, I will say a lot of things, some of which will be critical. But one promise I will make to myself is that whatever it is I criticize, I must find a way of doing something about that thing. I should never just talk. And if you check, part of the reason I'm overstretched is that almost everything I've spoken about critically, I've started something. Whether it's about widows, I've started a program to support poor widows. Whether it's about the nature of some policy problem, or we don't have rational public conversation in Nigeria, which is one of our biggest problems, I've created a program like Patito's Gang to try and engage that. I can go on and on. Maybe it's not the most effective way, but I think that for 40 years, I have tried to engage on what's the challenge with building a great nation out of the tremendous giftings that we have as a country. Today, obviously, we stand at a very dangerous edge in terms of how our country is managed, the way the economy is going. Let me just give you 2-3 quick examples of why we should be frightened and worried, in spite of everything. In a small period, about 2 years ago, Forbes magazine published an article, I think it was May 28, 2019, yeah, about Nigeria as Africa's money-losing machine. That was the title, Forbes magazine. It basically said that if you want to lose money, go and invest in Nigeria. Just imagine the consequence of that for investments. But of its own, that doesn't frighten me so much, because back in the 50s, one of the most regarded economists at Columbia on these kinds of matters, Ragnar Knox used to say, capital is made at home. So the fear of foreign investment, important as it is, isn't for me the biggest constraining problem. But around that same period, there was a study by the people at what's the institution next door to SAIS in Washington, Brookings Institution published a study, which is what has led to the new title of Nigeria as the poverty capital of the world. That study basically showed that even India, 7 times our size, that in terms of absolute numbers of absolutely poor people, we had exceeded India. That's what brought this poverty capital. Same year, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation looked at the state of poverty and concluded that within the next couple of years, between Nigeria and another resource-rich African country, Congo DRC, would contribute 40% of the most miserable people living on the planet Earth. Now, if that is not a reason to get ready to rescue, then nothing will make you want to. But we should not, after going through this from several perspectives, I've come to the conclusion that we should not take it that our country is run by wicked people. They're not run by wicked people. I think it's just that the people don't know enough to know that what they are doing is extremely dangerous and harmful. I mean, there's a paradigm that exists, that politics is just about, hey, just go and secure power and, your friends will be happy for a period. It's not about that. I'd like to say that if we're going to fix Nigeria, we must recognize, I don't know if the presentation has managed to go up or is struggling with it, that at the root, actually, of all success is a clear vision, strategy for the journey, values that will support your being able to do what you ought to do, and structures that can drive it. Have we managed to put this in place? Now, political parties are central to all of this. And this is why I feel pained by the fact that political parties have not managed to do enough. I think it was 2012 or so, the Leadership newspaper had the annual lecture here in Abuja, and the title was Political Parties. I was fortunate to be invited to give that lecture. And I talked about what political parties are. One of the primary responsibilities of political parties is recruiting and socializing people who will run these parties into a body of ideas about how the world should be ordered. Central to this, how the world should be economically ordered. I have seen a reluctance, and I don't know why, and this must be a point where we change it, a reluctance of political parties to really engage in doing that. When the current ruling party was founded and I was involved, I spent time banging down the doors of the chairman of the party about organizing anybody who's going to run for office. These are things we should expose them to, these and these and these and this and that, so they develop a worldview, they develop a certain way of accounting to everybody about how they're implementing. All I kept hearing was, there's no money. I said, you don't need money. We'll recruit volunteers to do this job. But it just seemed like the orientation, which for me is the fundamental failing of the political party system. The orientation was not there to recruit people. In fact, we should be recruiting from university, and from there begin to socialize those young minds into how society should be ordered economically, politically, and so on and so forth. But we've not done that. So that's part of the starting problem. The imperative of focusing political parties on playing that role is one of the challenges we must deal with. And of course, if we're going to do that, central to the problems of Nigeria is a failure to understand the difference between production and revenues and what they mean for the quality of life that people live. We are obsessed with revenues, and that's why we are fighting each other, starting wars, all kinds of things over sharing, structure, restructure. And when I hear these conversations, I'm struck about the power of ignorance. Ignorance is a very powerful thing. People are rushing to get what will make them poor. Go through history. No nation, no group of people became rich through revenues. You become rich through production. And I grew up in this country. I'm one of the most privileged Nigerians. I grew up Nigeria-wide. I was born in Kaduna. I was baptized in Jos. I lived as an infant in Maiduguri. I started school in Kano. I finished primary school in Guzo. I went to Loyola College in Ibadan. I went to secondary school in Onitsha. And I went to University of Nigeria in Nsukka. So I've lived around this country. Okay? And I know that when I was growing up, you could see production everywhere. the pyramids in the north, the everywhere production. Today you look, nobody's producing in Nigeria. And you think you will get rich? Impossible. Doesn't matter how much money you get, whether they are donating it, whether it is coming from oil or coming from diamond, coming from anything, you will be poor. You know, it's like what economists call the lottery effect. Have you ever seen a poor man who won the lottery? 10 years later, they are poorer than they were before they won the lottery. So revenues never make rich. What makes rich is production. Go back to history. Look at Spain versus Switzerland versus the Netherlands and those kinds of countries. When the conquistadores were bringing back revenues from Latin America, people of Switzerland, of the Netherlands, and Belgium were investing in their youth and their capacity to produce. Go back a couple of generations, Spain is much, much poorer than those countries. So what shall we do to change the mindset of a politician to be production-focused rather than revenue-focused? Because revenues are killing us. We're all struggling to gain more revenues. How can we do? What can we manipulate? Is it a petroleum act or bill or whatever it is? Is it that? Is that? And yet we're just rushing for what will make us poor. So let us see if political parties can develop a mindset that can get us away from where we are. There's a big struggle between the dirigist mindset, government control, and the market orientation. It's a major position we should take as political groupings. The dirigist mindset will, as history has shown, not make us grow as markets can. But you see, we make the mistake in not building up the institutions that will make markets a source of profit. Obviously, there's the big argument that markets can be imperfect. Yes, they can be. The whole Keynesian economics is about interventions to help markets when they are in trouble. However, what we have done is, under the guise of intervening in markets, we have made our markets impossible. Look at these foreign exchange problems. You see, people can call people names for whatever reasons. But I will forever respect the courage of General Ibrahim Babangida for making a decision that got us out of the mess of not having a foreign exchange market. Because it was going to be tough with the elite and their interests, he played the game with everybody. We called him all kinds of Maradona disease. Then we started with a two-tier foreign exchange market, SFEM. Then we graduated to a market, and foreign exchange was liberally available to both the trader and the manufacturer. I can tell you the stories because I was in this process all through. Now, while we have created a market, in the last couple of years, we have destroyed the market. And now we are blaming everybody else for it. But the institutions that support markets essentially build boundaries to conduct. When we fracture the institutions and we expect them to react again, we are making fundamental errors. It's not we shouldn't be blaming anybody. We created the problem, and the market is wobbling. We all now are paying the price for it. And we may be 1,000 naira dollar in months, and we created the problem. We should not deceive ourselves. We're not producing. We are sharing the money. We're doing this. All of these are man-made problems. Our poverty is caused by us. Again, we've got to talk about a clear national strategy. What is our national strategy? Really, every day we're throwing out numbers. We're saying, what's our national strategy? Where are we going? How are we growing? How do we grow the economy? Well, as a view that I've held on to for many years, there used to be a World Bank economist here, a German chap, who used to listen to me talk about, first of all, if you get revenues that you're getting, as we're getting from crude oil and whatever mineral resources, we should not just rush and spend the money. We must save a significant part of these revenues. First of all, from a moral point of view, These revenues belong to all generations of Nigerians. If we in this generation take it all from the ground and chop, our children will curse us forever because it's their entitlement that we're squandering. But let's even move away from that moral angle in terms of good economics. And the lessons can be taught us by small countries like Botswana. Okay? Botswana from 1968 to 1980 was the fastest growing economy in the world from diamond exports. But what did they do with the revenues from diamond exports? They basically saved them into a future fund. For generations, the budgets of Botswana will be funded from the dividends that's coming from the investments that they have made from earnings from diamonds. So I argued that what Nigeria should do is break oil revenues into 3 pots. One pot, probably no more than $40 a barrel, should be what goes into our FAC account. From say 30 to 70 when the thing was booming, should go into a fund that we can turn to very quickly if oil prices were to go to 8, because that's happened before. And beyond that, everything should go to a future fund that will be invested long term. We can choose to put them in infrastructure in Nigeria, as some, like Malaysia, are doing with their future fund, or we can choose to just invest them abroad and wait for the dividends like the Kuwaiti funds and all of those are doing. But we have chosen not to, and have, the way we have spent that money, made the economics of this country a basket case, a laughing matter. The truth of the matter, that is what it is, a laughing matter. So if we were to have a worldview about our economy, the path that I will pursue, bearing this thing I've said in mind, is that we should focus on our latent comparative advantage. What does this mean? We have factor endowments. When I see Nigerians quarreling about, hey, your state produces this much, your state doesn't produce, I laugh at ignorance. No part of this country is without endowment. And you can take the endowment of every part of Nigeria with limited industrial policy, create global value chains that will make that part of the country extremely wealthy. Okay? I can take gum arabic and date palm between them, create an industrial park. This is for Northwest or wherever. And chemical industries and all kinds of things that can be built locally from those endowments, dominate the value chain. Take sesame seeds in the middle, not central, that they are using to make soup. Soup, just eating soup. We can take this and target dominating the McDonald's chain for just on the bonds in Europe and process the thing. Education from primary school will be oriented towards those endowments in those areas. By the time you are in SS3 or 4, you can run a business on an aspect of the value chain of sesame seeds. And there will be no poverty in this land. I don't understand what this elite is doing. We are a disgrace as a group to our people. That is the truth I tell you. Dr. Bugaji, is it time to chase me off? No, I think I still have 3 minutes. It is. Oh, okay. So, really, truly, the focus we should also have in doing these things are the principles of subsidiarity and solidarity. Subsidiarity in moving decision-making to the lowest level, closest to the people, and solidarity in recognizing that we have a shared humanity and helping out one another wherever we can. If we can base our worldviews on those principles, and we understand this process of focusing on production and dominating certain global value chains, there will be no Boko Haram. There will be no insecurity, because everybody will be too busy building a decent and happy life to worry about making another person's life uncomfortable. Let me stop there. Thank you all.